So welcome everybody to, this is the third webinar in our series of strategies for e-commerce success. And today's topic is three key areas that you need to check and continually examine to make sure that your e-commerce business is not only profitable, but as profitable as it possibly can be. Our format today is to have a formal presentation done by my partner, Juliet Aurora. It's going to last approximately 30 minutes, give or take. At the conclusion, we will have time for a Q&A, and we'll take questions either based upon today's topics, or if you simply have any questions around any aspect of bookkeeping or accounting for e-commerce, then we will try our best to help you with those. This is a relatively short format for a webinar, so in order to keep our content as wide-ranging as possible and provide value, hopefully for everyone that's in attendance, we want to make sure that we've done some things for people who are just starting out in e-commerce, as well as some things for people who are perhaps veterans of the e-commerce space. So hopefully we'll have something for everyone. If you do have any questions, please put them in the Q&A section, which you can see down at the bottom of the screen. Don't put them in the chat. It's the Q&A is where we will be monitoring the questions. So just type in if you have anything you'd like us to deal with. And now, I guess, we're ready, and I will turn it over to Juliet. Juliet, the stage is yours.
Perfect. Thank you, Steve. And I guess before I get started, let's just make sure that all of our tech is working. So in the Q&A section, if you can just type, your name and where you're from, then it gives us an idea as well of what areas across Canada or the US we've got guests attending with us today, as well as it makes sure that you can actually hear what I'm saying, rather than I'm just talking and you can see my mouth moving. Maybe you can't even see me, and that you can see my slide deck as well. That's fairly important. So we have Brian from Saskatchewan. Excellent. Welcome, Brian. And Shauna from Halifax. Excellent. And we've got Serge from Quebec City. Welcome, Serge. And Serge, just to let you know, you typed in the chat. So if you're posting any questions, please do post them in the Q&A section so we make sure that we're picking them up from there. It should be along the same bar along the bottom of your Zoom screen. And then we've got Larissa from Edmonton. Excellent. So we've got a lot of cities covered.
Yeah, we have another Brian from Ottawa.
Perfect. Running on the Brians today. Excellent. Welcome, Brian. Okay. So apparently it is working, which is perfect. So let us get started. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is, why do you want to listen to us? Why are you spending the next 30 minutes or so with us? Why can you possibly even believe anything that we're saying? So I thought it would be important, in case you don't already know who we are, that we talk, take 2 minutes and talk about a little bit who we are. So we both Steve and I are the owners of AIS Solutions, which is a bookkeeping and accounting firm. We've been in business for 20 years, but we specialize in the e-commerce space. So you may think, well, the e-commerce bookkeeping isn't that complicated. Does it matter that you specialize in that space? And what does that do for me? More than anything else, what it allows us to do is it allows us to see what the e-commerce market looks like across a whole bunch of different sectors and a different customer base. So what we often do is we share what we're learning with one customer with our other customers. So you can benefit just via us from having some exposure to other e-commerce businesses and business owners, what they're doing that's working well, what they're not doing that's not working well. What are other e-commerce businesses measuring? Are you measuring the same thing? So that really is why you want to, why it's important to be able to find someone who knows the space, not just as a bookkeeper. And then some accolades that we've received over the last several years, top 50 cloud accountant, global firm of the future. And I guess the other thing that really distinguishes us is that we actually owned our own e-commerce store for 8 years before we actually started specializing in the e-commerce space. So not only do we have the experience from the bookkeeping and accounting side and the exposure to other customers, we actually were retailers ourselves, so understand the language, understand the challenges that go with it. And then we also are trainer writers in the industry, and we teach other bookkeepers. So that's a little bit about us. I tried to keep it as short as possible. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes. And I realized when I was looking at my notes for this, the first one on the agenda is why it matters. And that's actually aligned for the first line of the agenda from the previous webinar we did, and I forgot to edit it and remove it. So I don't actually have a slide that talks about why it matters. But I think it's fairly important that everybody, and I'm fairly self-explanatory, why it matters. Why does it matter that your e-commerce business is profitable? Because that's what we're here for, right? You're here, you started it to either replace your income and do it full time, or to have it as a nice side job to supplement your income. So for all the effort that you put into it, you want to make sure that you're making some money. And of course, the more money you can make on it, the better. So that's why it matters. Again, self-explanatory. We're going to be talking, and I've got listed on the agenda, the 4 things that we're going to be talking about, which are going to help you, and things to look at to help your business be more profitable. If you were to type into Google, things to look for, things to make my business, my e-commerce business more profitable, everybody pretty much gives you the same information. Email marketing, you should be doing email marketing to grow your list. Social media, use social media to drive traffic to your store. They talk about retargeting ads. And if you don't know what a retargeting ad is, basically a stalker, I call them stalker ads. Or once you visit the website and you leave the website and you're looking at something else online, whether it's Facebook or another website, the ad follows you around from website to website. So they talk about retargeting ads and then abandoned carts. So those are the things that come up most often. And we didn't want to cover those things because there's so much information already out there that you can Google and find about those. If you're not familiar with any of them, please do Google them because they are very important. So the ones that we wanted to cover were a little bit different. The first one we're going to talk about is the customer experience. We're going to talk about cross-selling and upselling. Maximizing cross-border exchange, very important for us Canadians in the audience. And then even though the title of the presentation was 3 things you should check, we're giving you a bonus one. So we're giving you number 4, which is going to be knowing your numbers. And then, of course, as Steve said, we're going to be opening it up to Q&A. And if there is something that, as I'm explaining something or talking about something and it's not clear, please do post your question in the Q&A. And if it's not clear, Steve will interrupt me and make sure that I add some clarification on the topic as well. Okay, so let's get started. So the first one, customer experience. And as we know, this is not what we want our customers to experience. But are your customers feeling like this when they're trying to buy something from you through your e-commerce shopping cart? A lot of this customer experience is about the shopping cart itself and the platform that you're selling on. So the first thing you need to know is this how your customers are feeling? And the only way you're really going to know that is to actually go through the entire process yourself. Actually buy something from start to finish from your shopping cart. And we always recommend, some people will do it when they launch their e-commerce store, but do it on a regular basis, whether it's every couple of months, every 6 months. You don't want to do it only once a year because the technology is changing so quickly that something may have changed that you aren't even aware that has changed, but your customer is experiencing that change. So the only way that you can, kind of stay on top of anything is by actually going through the shopping cart from start to finish by yourself.
Yeah, the other thing I would add there too, Juliet, is that a lot of e-commerce business today is done on mobile. So not only should you be looking, at your shopping cart, your website, going through the process, but you should make sure you do that on a regular basis on your phone. And make sure that your site is easy to navigate, that it's like actually go in and actually buy something, and make sure that it's an experience that you would want to go through again. So don't overlook the mobile aspect of it, because more and more people now are buying online using their phone.
Good point, definitely. Now, if you're using Amazon or Shopify, you don't have as much control over the shopping cart experience. More so or less so with Amazon, you have more control on the look and feel of things with Shopify. But if you're using WooCommerce or BigCommerce, and there's, Magento, there's tons of e-commerce platforms that are out there, or if you've built a custom shopping cart for yourself, then you do want to make sure that the navigation through the shopping cart, it's easy for your customers to search for things and find things. That's what you want to make sure is happening. So again, if you're Amazon, if Amazon especially, you have very little control over what it looks like. The only thing you have control over are your description and your pictures. So make sure that you're maximizing that space, talking about your product, explaining what it does, give as much detail as possible, as well as your image. Make sure that you're adding multiple images into your shopping cart so that they can see the product from different sides, front, back, and be able to visualize it. Again, remember that people aren't able to touch and feel your product, so it's through this shopping cart that you have to be able to convince them that it's something that they want and something that they need to buy. The other thing that you want to do, so this is what you're trying to get to. You don't want the previous lady as your customer. You want your people that go through your shopping cart experience to feel like this, that they want to give you 5 stars. So in the case of Amazon, where you don't have the ability to customize the shopping experience, think about the after shopping experience. What can you customize or personalize after they've bought something from you? Can you customize the email? Is the email just a formal templated email when they buy something, or can you change it? Can you make it more personable? Can you make it represent your business and your brand and your personality? So do think about that as well. Don't assume that the customer experience stops once they've hit buy and check out. The customer experience is from start when they land on your website all the way through to delivery. So are you making it very clear to them when they're going to receive the product? Are you setting expectations for how long it's going to take them to get the product? Are they allowed to track the package as it's been shipped and landing on their door? Do you send them an email afterwards, after they've received it, to make sure that they're happy with it? So lots of things that you can do in the after experience as well. Don't just focus on the shopping cart itself. When you're sending an email after they've purchased, do you then offer them a discount or a coupon for their next purchase? Or a referral link that if they want to, share your store with another potential customer, is there an easy way for them to do that in the emails that you send them? And then lastly, of course, the return process. If they aren't happy with the product, how easy is it for them to send it back to you? So that's certainly something, to think about, that you want to make their experience a positive experience all the way through. But if they decide not to keep the item for whatever reason, make it easy for them to return as well. So these are all things that create your customer experience. And the one thing to note, as more and more shopping carts are showing up on the web, it used to be, 10 years ago, that if you wanted to buy a black cup, you could only go to one website to get this black cup. That's not the case anymore. So as the products are being commoditized and they can buy this same black cup in 5 different places, it is the way that they feel and the way you make them feel through the experience that is going to have them coming back and referring your store. And then this is also something to consider. Now, I talked about returns, how important it is to be able to make the return process easy for them. You have to remember as well that most people that are buying from you online don't know who you are. And so for a lot of people, and especially if they're just entering in the e-commerce space with everything with COVID and the pandemic, a lot more people are buying online. And a lot of them are first-time shoppers. So they don't necessarily, they're not as comfortable, but they're doing it out of necessity because they don't want to go physically into a mall or running around. Having a 100% satisfaction guarantee on your website will absolutely take away one of the biggest challenges or obstacles that people will have in buying online as well. If I don't like it, then I'm stuck with it. If you give them a 100% satisfaction guarantee, then you're removing that as an obstacle for them as a reason not to buy from you. So is this something that you have already? If it's not, then make sure that you're offering it. Now, if you're selling through Amazon, I guess, requires it, and Amazon is the one that provides that satisfaction guarantee. So you have no choice if you're with Amazon. But if you're not selling through Amazon, make sure that this is something that you're offering yourself through your website. And I'll give you an example. So although we're talking e-commerce and products, it certainly does apply in any industry. So as I said at the beginning, we are a bookkeeping and accounting and training firm, but we have a 100% satisfaction guarantee on our services as well. So, and in I'm going to say 15 years that we've been offering this 100% satisfaction guarantee, a lot of people don't offer it because they think I'm going to be refunding, I'm going to be doing work for free, I'm going to be shipping out product for free. We've had one person come to us looking for a refund. So one person over 15 years, and how many people did it comfort that there was that guarantee by having it on the website. So do think about, or do seriously think about putting that on your website. So any questions before we move on to number 2? Do you have any questions that we need to address, Steve?
Well, there's one thing I just wanted to talk about briefly before we completely leave customer experience, and that is the importance of measuring things. At the very minimum, and obviously you can't do this with Amazon, but on your shopping cart, as an absolute minimum, you need to make sure you have Google Analytics installed. It is very difficult to improve your customer experience if you cannot measure and see what is working and where you have problem areas. Google Analytics will, and it's free, so there really is no excuse not to use it. Google Analytics will allow you to track and make sure you have it set up for e-commerce. It's very easy to do. You can track things like conversion rates, how many people come into your cart and how many buy. How many new customers do you have versus returning customers? What is your cart abandonment rate? What percentage of people who actually go into the cart, put things in the cart, and then just abandon it? And then depending upon, your budget and the size of your e-commerce business, the next level is to add what we call heat map software. And heat map software gives you the ability to actually see what your customers are doing on your website. You can even see it in real time. You can track the movement of their mouse. You can track and see, are they having trouble finding things? Do they keep going back and forth to the same page, which is a great indication that, they're not understanding what they're supposed to be doing. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of having, as an absolute minimum, Google Analytics. Like I say, regardless of the size of your business, Google Analytics is free. And then have a look at heat map software, particularly if you don't think your shopping cart is working the way you would like it to, or the way you think it should be working. Heat mapping software will absolutely help you with that, because it'll show you, visual representation on the page of what people are doing and where they're clicking. So those are two great tools for helping to improve your customer experience.
Great. And I remember, so we installed the heat mapping software when we had our e-commerce store. And I remember when Steve showed it to me, how scary I thought it was. And it was completely valuable information, but I was thinking it from the perspective as a shopper, that someone can actually be seeing where my mouse is going and where I pause and where I click and when I scroll, how long it takes me to scroll down the page. And I thought how scary it was from a consumer perspective. But from an e-commerce retailer perspective, absolutely so valuable information. And I remember how much stuff we changed, even from moving things that we had put at the bottom of the page and realized that nobody ever looked at because nobody scrolled that far, but it was important. And so we moved it and relocated it closer to the top. So it certainly can provide you with a lot of information. But great questions, or great addition there, Steve. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to talk about cross-selling and upselling. And you may not know what that is, so I've got a really simple example. You go to a burger place, so you go into McDonald's and you order a Big Mac. And when you order your Big Mac, you say, I would like a Big Mac, just a sandwich, please. So cross-selling is they ask you, would you like fries with that? Would you like a drink with that? So they're trying to sell you another product that would complement what it is that you are actually buying. So that's cross-selling, where you're looking to add on additional products that are going to complement what the consumer is already buying. Versus upselling is where you want to sell them, they're looking to buy a drink, and you want to, McDonald's, would you like to supersize that? So they're trying to sell you're trying to sell the same product, but either a larger version of it. If you're selling products and you have different size bags of a product, and they're buying a small, you ask them if they'd like to buy a medium or a large. So when you're selling them the same product, but either a bigger version of it or a better version of it. So that is upselling. And so the example I've given you is McDonald's, but you'll see it all the time. Apple does this beautifully. And Steve and I are both Apple junkies, and you go onto the Apple website and you see, a MacBook, $2,200 or let's say $1,600 for a MacBook. And you think, I can afford $1,600 for a MacBook. Okay, so it's not as expensive as I thought. Then you go through their purchase process and they ask you, would you like to increase your RAM? Would you like to increase the resolution of your screen? Would you like to add more memory? And all of those things have, $50, $70, $80, $100 additional price points on them. And you think, okay, for $50, sure, I'll increase my RAM. Okay, so it's $200. Yeah, I'll increase the resolution on my screen. And then you go to checkout and you started out at $1,600 and you end up at like $2,200. And very rarely will people go back and remove things because they actually went through the process of thinking about, yes, I want that. And once they've convinced themselves that, yes, they want it, it's rare that they'll go back and remove things to go back to the 1,600 point. They may go from 2,200 to 1,800, but it's rare that they will go all the way back to the 1,600 point. So if you are selling on Amazon, Amazon does a fabulous job of cross-selling and upselling. The problem is that they don't only cross-sell and upsell products that you sell. So if you have something that you're selling on Amazon, Amazon will give recommendations to your consumer of other products that people have bought similar to yours or as a complement to yours. So do think about that as well with Amazon. The other thing that Amazon does a great job of is that they actually send out emails if you to consumers saying, well, hey, you bought this, you might like this. So on the Amazon side, they have the cross-sell and the upsell, pretty sweetly organized, but make sure that you are doing it on your own, and it can significantly increase the average sale dollar value per customer. And if you're increasing the average sale per customer, then you're also increasing your profit.
Yeah, and the other, just on that last point, just quickly, the other important thing to remember there too, right, is that's all automated. Like once you set up your cross-selling and your upselling, and just about every shopping cart software on the market today now allows you to do this. Once you set it up, you then forget about it.
Right.
So it's no additional work for anyone. It is all automated. So it's a great way. In McDonald's, right, it takes them a little bit extra time, right, for their people to do that. In your shopping cart is no additional cost to you at all. And it is a great and easy way of increasing, as Juliet said, your average ticket sale.
Yeah. Okay, so the third one is maximizing your cross-border exchange. Now, what do I mean by that? So as we do more business, if you're in Canada, if you're doing more business into the US, we often see sellers not taking advantage of the exchange. And there is a 35 to 40% differential right now between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar. And what we've seen is that you're selling a product in Canada for $25 in Canada, Canadian dollars, and then you're selling it in the US, and you actually convert it and sell it for $17 or $18. Whereas a lot of very successful sellers sell at $25 Canadian, or if you're in the US, it's $25 US. So think about whether or not, that's something that you can do, whether your shopping cart can do it, because some shopping carts don't have that ability. Think about whether or not your shopping cart has multi-currency functionality. Sometimes it doesn't, that everything is in one currency only. And if you're only in one currency, where do you want your biggest market to be? If you want it to be in the US, put all your shopping cart prices in US dollars. Don't put them in Canadian dollars if you can only do one currency. Again, these are business decisions that you need to think about within your own scope of your business. But our role is to just throw ideas out there to maybe introduce something that you may not have thought about. The other thing to think about is if you're shipping into the US, it's probably also costing you more to ship the product into the US. So you want to make sure you're not absorbing that on your own, that it's built in somewhere into your cost, your selling price. Okay, and number 4, how are we for time, Steve?
Yeah, we're fine. We're fine.
Okay, good. Because when I go full screen, I have no clocks anywhere. I can't really see what's going on, so I'm kind of in a bubble, I guess.
Yeah, no, we've been going about 29, 30 minutes.
Okay, so this is point number 4. And this one is something that, obviously is near and dear to our hearts just because of the industry that we're in. But as Steve said at the beginning, when he was talking about measuring how your shopping cart is performing, it's as important, our focus is to make your e-commerce business more profitable. Well, you need to know what your starting point is so that as you make these changes, is it going to be more profitable? But you need to know where your starting point is before you can determine that, yes, I'm now more profitable. So knowing your numbers is so vitally important. In most e-commerce platforms, it's really easy to get your sales data. In Shopify, you can get your sales, no problem. That's not telling you profit. That's telling you your revenue. What's more important is, okay, how much is it costing for you to buy and manufacture and and get that product? And what is your profit margin after you ship it out and you have packaging and you have to wrap it up and you have to buy bubble wrap or you have to buy boxes and packing tape? Those are all expenses that come out of that dollar that you've sold. So you want to make sure that you're measuring, where it is that you're ending up every time you sell a product. Because we have seen some of our customers, when they came to us, they were selling something online and it was actually costing them money out of their pocket every time they shipped something. So that's just, you're headed on a path where it's not sustainable and you're going to run out of money really quickly. And a lot of people don't understand, well, I'm selling stuff, how can I not be making money? So it's very important for you to understand what all the rest of the costs are that are associated with that sale. So you're looking for things like inventory. What is the cost of your inventory, as I talked about? The fees. Amazon charges you fees. Shopify charges you fees. If you're using credit cards or you're accepting PayPal, Square, Stripe, there's all fees associated with that. So you need to be able to take those into account and make sure that your selling price is high enough to cover all of those costs, as well as leave some profit for you at the end. Because profit is what is going to keep your business sustainable. And quite honestly, profit is the reason that we've all opened an e-commerce business, is because you want to be able to either have this as your full-time business or you want to supplement your income. But if it's costing you every time you ship something out the door, or you're doing all of this effort and you're making 3 cents on your product, it's not going to be sustainable for you. So the metrics are very important. You need to be able to measure things as you go along, not just the sales side of it. Okay, so I'm probably a couple minutes over. And again, we've talked about 4 different areas that you should be looking at. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you aren't familiar with the ones that are rampant on Google, your email marketing, your social media, driving your traffic through social media, abandoned carts, which Steve touched on a little bit as well, and retargeting ads, please do make sure that you're actually Googling those items as well. I will turn it back over to you, Steve.
Thanks, Juliet. Great job. I guess a couple of things, and you touched on, e-commerce is becoming more and more competitive. And, the shoppers and the buyers are becoming more and more savvy. They know they can buy the same thing at a bunch of different places. So there's a couple of things very important. Checking pricing, checking your competitors' pricing on the same item on a regular basis, and making sure you are competitive all the time. You don't necessarily have to be the absolute lowest every time, but you do have to be competitive. And then that brings us to one of the most common questions we get, from our e-commerce clients that we help. And that is, it is now so competitive. How can I increase my profit? How can I be more profitable? And we've touched on a number of things, but one of the things, and I know it is not possible in every business depending upon what you're selling, but you'll be surprised how many businesses this is possible. And that is white labeling. And white labeling is simply finding a product that will fit with the product mix you are selling, that you can find someone who will make it for you exclusively with your name on it. So in other words, they may make that same product and they may sell it to 5 different people, but each one has that other business's name on it. Maybe the packaging's a little different. Maybe the product color is a little bit different. But it is through white labeling and having products that you have in a somewhat exclusive market that can help you increase your profit margin, because people can't find that identical product to shop just on price. So white labeling is something you really should at least think about and see if there are options for you for your business. It can be a way of really helping to improve your profitability for your own e-commerce business.
So there you go. We gave you 5. We gave you 5 things.
Was that 5? Okay.
That was 5. I needed another. I should have had another slide for it. Great, great point. Any questions in the audience?
You must have done a great job, Juliet. We don't have any questions in the audience at this point. So I think we give everybody a few more seconds just to collect their thoughts, and maybe they'll have a question. But right now, we're good. You've covered everything. Did an awesome job.
Very cool. And so I put on the screen how you can contact us, my email address, Steve's email address, our website. We also have a podcast, Smart Man, Smarter Woman, which is a fabulous name, as I'm sure you would agree, which is a podcast for entrepreneurs. So it's not only related to the e-commerce space. It is, if you're an entrepreneur anywhere in your journey, we have guests that come on from all over the world, and we've had some really, really interesting discussions. And so if you visit the website, you can listen to the podcast as well. And there's our contact info. And I think that's about it. That's it from me anyways.
And please, if you have a question, if you already have a bookkeeper and accountant, you're really happy with them, that's great. But you just have some questions about e-commerce, send us an email. We'll be happy to try and answer them and, see if we can't help you out a little bit. We, I believe, may have a question. No, that was just one comment from Yelena, just saying thank you very much. So you're very welcome, Yelena.
You're very welcome, Yelena.
And again, I would say we are done for today.
Perfect. Thank you all for joining us. Have a fabulous week.
Bye for now.